Some people have scars on the outside. Some people wear their scars on the inside. But every scar has a story. Every loss carries love, and every survivor holds a strength they may not realize they possess. Welcome to S.O.S. Stories of Survivors. Hi, and welcome back to S.O.S. Stories of Survivors. I'm your host, Serina Dansker, author of S.O.S., A Lesson on Love, Loss, and Survival, and most importantly, Scotty's mom. Today's episode's a little different. There's no guest sitting across from me. It's just me, Scott's words, and a conversation that I hope reaches someone who needs to hear it. Today I want to talk about loneliness. Not just the kind of loneliness when you're physically alone in a room. I mean the kind of loneliness that can follow you into a crowded cafeteria, a family dinner, a party, a classroom, a text thread, or even your own home. The kind of loneliness that makes you feel like you're standing outside the circle, watching everyone else belong. The kind that whispers, "You don't fit here." The kind that says, everyone else is doing better than you. The kind that makes you feel unseen, even when people love you. And one of the hardest lessons I've learned is that you can be surrounded by love and still feel completely alone. Before I go further, I want to say this gently. This episode talks about grief, suicide loss, body image, teenage pain, and mental health. So please take care of yourself while you listen. And if you're listening and you feel unsafe with your thoughts, or you feel like you can't carry your pain anymore, please call or text 988 in the United States, because you are not a burden. You are not alone. Your life matters. In my book, when I wrote chapter 4, I called it loneliness. And I think loneliness is one of those words we all understand, but we don't always talk about it honestly, because loneliness can feel embarrassing. It can feel like failure. It can make you wonder, what's wrong with me? But loneliness is not proof that something is wrong with you. Sometimes loneliness is simply your heart asking to be seen. When I think about loneliness, I actually go all the way back to my own childhood. I was an only child, and in some ways, I was very good at entertaining myself. I could sit with a Nancy Drew book and a bowl of Lucky Charms and get completely lost in my own world. I could line up my stuffed animals and create an entire classroom where, of course, I was the teacher. I had the lesson plans, I had the rules, and it was just a wonderful classroom situation going on. But, when I look back also on those days, part of it feels sweet, but there's also another part of it that felt very lonely. I remember looking out my window and seeing other kids playing outside. They'd be laughing or running around, playing tag, whispering secrets. They argue over games, but they were part of something. And I remember really wanting to be part of that as well. I didn't want to be the one watching from the window. I wanted to belong. My mother saw that in me. At the time, I probably thought she was pushing me too hard. She would want me to go outside, talk to people, make friends. I mean, she would really actually threaten me if I didn't go be part of the world. And as a child, that can feel uncomfortable. But now as an adult and as a mother, I understand what she was doing. She was trying to protect me. She didn't want my loneliness to become my whole world. And that's something I understand differently now. Sometimes connection does not just magically happen. Sometimes we have to be nudged towards it. Sometimes we have to learn how to reach out. We have to walk through awkward situations. Sometimes we have to risk being rejected or figure out who our people are by first figuring out who our people are not. And none of that's easy, but it matters. Belonging matters. So when I first had triplets, one of the first thoughts I had was probably something only an only child would think. I thought, at least they'll never be lonely. 3 babies, 3 built-in best friends, 3 little people who would always have each other. And in many ways, they did have each other. There was chaos. There was laughter. There were fights. There were inside jokes, games, arguments, and moments when they ganged up on each other and on me. But there were also moments when they protected each other. And it was all a beautiful madness that comes with raising triplets. And because I had grown up as an only child, I thought that having siblings meant that loneliness would not be part of their story. But now I know that's not how it works. Loneliness is not about the number of people in a room. Loneliness doesn't care if you have siblings. Loneliness does not care if you have friends. Loneliness also lies to you. It doesn't care if you have people that love you. Loneliness asks a deeper question. Do I belong? Am I enough? Does anyone really see me? If I told you the truth about how I feel, would anyone really stay? And that's where this episode becomes so personal, because Scott was loved. He was loved deeply. He was loved fiercely, not just by me, but by his friends and family. And he was loved so completely. But love around someone does not always mean they can feel that love inside themselves. That's one of the most painful truths I live with. You know, Scott was so full of life. If you knew him, you knew he had this energy. He was funny. He was creative. He had a personality that could fill a room. He could make people laugh. He could be charming. He could also be larger than life. He was silly, and he just wanted to be liked. He wanted that social scene, that connection. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be that guy. And the heartbreaking thing is, in so many ways, he already was that guy. But self-doubt can blind you to your own light. And that's what I wish every young person understood. Sometimes what you see in the mirror is not the truth. Sometimes what your mind tells you is not the truth. Sometimes you're loved, wanted, admired, and needed, but your pain is so loud that you can't hear any of it. In my letters to Scott, in chapter 4 of my book, I wrote about he always wanted to be the hot guy that girls liked. And what I wish he knew was that he already was that guy to so many people. There were girls who liked him. There were people who noticed him. There were people who cared. But yet self-doubt kept him from seeing it. And it's such a painful thing because as a parent, you want your love to be enough. You want your child to believe that when you tell your child they're beautiful enough, that they'll believe you. If you hug them enough, they'll feel safe. If you say, I love you enough times, they'll never question their worth. But take it from me, pain doesn't work that way. Sometimes the people we love most are fighting battles inside themselves that we can't see. And then let's talk about when COVID happened. The world shut down. School stopped. Sports stopped. Imagine being a teenager and you see your friends from behind a screen. Milestones disappeared. Everything that gives teenagers structure and connection changed. And for a teenager who's trying to figure out their lives and struggling already to figure out where they fit in, that kind of isolation just got louder. Scott's social life was suddenly trapped in a phone. And I know cell phones are a big thing, but that's a dangerous place to live when you're already comparing yourself to everyone else. Because as you guys know, social media does not show real life. It shows the best angle, the best lighting, the best moment, the best body, the best party, the best smile. And if you already feel insecure, it can make you believe that everyone else is happy and living their best life and beautiful and wanted. And it's a life that is so perfect that you just can't reach it. Scott struggled with acne. He struggled with body image. He was working out all the time. He wanted to feel good enough. He wanted to feel confident in his own skin. And I tried to help. Of course, I was his mother. All I wanted was for him to feel the best about himself. And that's what mothers do. We try to fix things. We try to solve problems. And maybe that's wrong, but we try to make it better. I tell him, don't pick at your acne. It's just going to get worse. It's a temporary thing. We'll go to the doctor, the dermatologist. I tell him how handsome he was and how amazing he was. And I meant every single word to it. But it didn't matter because Scott would say, I don't believe you, Mom. You're just saying that because you love me and I don't need you to fix this. And I thought about it. And sometimes our kids need us to sit beside them in the pain that they're in and just say, I know this feels awful, but I'm here. And that's something I understand more now. Every time I tried to help, it sometimes turned into a fight. He didn't want me to fix it. I didn't always know how to simply sit with him, though, at the time in his pain. And it's a really hard thing for me to admit, but it's also important because sometimes presence is so much more powerful than advice. Sometimes listening is more powerful than fixing. Sometimes saying, tell me more is better than saying, here's what we should do. I wish I'd known that then the way I know it now. You know, one of the gifts Scott left behind was his poetry. And I call it a gift, but it's also heartbreaking because his poems let me see parts of him that I did not always fully understand. When he was standing right in front of me, this is one of the hardest things about grief. You look back and think, how did I miss this? How did I not know how deep it went? What could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? But Scott gave us his words. And through those words, he still speaks. So I wanted to read his full poem that he wrote from chapter 4, and it's called, I Got Nobody. In Scott's words, this was written April 9th of 2020. I got nobody. You can only dislike things that can be fixed. Looking at yourself in the mirror transfixed. My mind is affixed. I can see what I used to see in myself. All I see is connect the dots, making an elf. My face is scarred, my body is a lard. This is why I constantly look for attention. I crave to be complimented on my complexion. My mom was right. My acne looks like I was in a fight. My body looks like a bomb site. And my personality makes people take flight. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like a mental amputee, like I'm drowning in a never-ending sea, falling deeper down, losing the light that was once within me. Every time I read that poem, I feel like I'm holding my breath because I hear a boy who is hurting. I hear a boy who could not see what we saw. I hear a boy who felt like he was drowning, even though he was surrounded by people who would have jumped through hoops or into any pool without any hesitation. And that line, losing the light that was once within me, that line stays with me because Scott had so much light. And yet, in that moment, he couldn't feel it. This is why I do this show. This is why I wrote my book. This is why I keep talking to whoever will listen to me, because even when it's hard, someone listening may have their own version of that poem inside them. Maybe they haven't written it down. Maybe they haven't told anybody. Maybe they're still smiling. still going to work, still posting photos, still answering, I'm fine when asked. But inside, they feel like they're drowning. So let me say this clearly. Feeling lonely does not mean something is wrong with you. It means something in you is asking for connection, and you deserve that connection. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be loved in the places where you feel most unlovable. I also want to speak to the parents for a moment, because I know how easy it is to blame yourself. I know how easy it is to replay every conversation, every argument, every heated text, eye roll, or moment when you were just tired and just needed a break. Every moment when you could have listened longer, or every moment when you said the wrong thing. And I still do that. I don't have all the answers, but I know that we parents parent from a place where we are at the time, and we love with the tools that we have, and we try our best with what we understand. And we also ask for help when we can, and when you know better, you do better. So now I try to turn my pain into purpose. I try to talk about the things we didn't know how to talk about. I try to remind people that mental health struggles don't always look like what you expect. They don't look like someone crying in the bathroom or in the corner. They don't look like the funny-looking kid who's just, having a hard time with acne. They look like the kid that likes to make jokes, the class clown. They look like the athlete who's like the number one player, MVP. They look like the popular ones. And sometimes they look like the one who's making everyone else laugh, or the one that's there for all of their friends. And you know what? Sometimes they seem like they're just fine. And that's why we have to check in differently. Not just, are you okay? Because most people will say, I'm fine. But maybe we ask, how is your heart today? Or how are you feeling right now? Or maybe, what's been feeling heavy for you lately? Have you been feeling like yourself? Because there is a part of us that has that little second thing inside of you that recognizes when someone's hurting. And if you're the one hurting, you don't have to answer perfectly. You could say, just know that I'm here. Maybe we stop rushing to fix things long enough so that people hear us. In my book, I also talk about loneliness in a broader way, not just about Scott's story, but I talk about my story too. I spent years when I was younger obsessing over diets, just like most teenagers, trying to fit in. I wish I had an older sibling to look out for me. I put up a tough front. I acted like I had it all together. But you know what? Inside I was a mess. And that was without social media constantly showing me filtered versions of perfection. So when I think about what teenagers are up against today, I have so much compassion, because they're growing up in a world where they can compare themselves to everyone all the time. And they're told constantly what makeup to wear. They're seeing who was invited to the best parties and who was not. They can see who's hanging out with their best friends and who wasn't called. They count their likes. They compare their bodies. They zoom in on their flaws. Oh my God. They can be praised one minute and attacked the next. It's a lot for anybody, and especially a developing heart, to carry. And adults aren't immune to this either. Loneliness affects everyone. Teenagers, parents, caregivers, widows, people in marriages, people who live alone, people who are grieving, people who are surrounded by friends, people starting over, people who look strong. Sometimes the strongest people are the loneliest people in the room. Grief brings its own kind of loneliness because after someone dies, especially when someone dies by suicide, your world changes in a way that other people just can't fully understand unless they lived it. And don't get me wrong, people love you. They show up, they bring food, they text, they pray, and then eventually the world keeps moving on. But your world doesn't move the same way. You're still standing in the before and the after. You're still trying to understand how someone you love so deeply could be gone. And you're still trying to make sense of something that doesn't make any sense. And that can be very lonely. Even when people are kind, even when people care, even when you are grateful. Because grief can make you feel like you live in a different world from everyone else. And that's why connection matters so much. Not perfect words, not answers, connections, and or support. Someone sitting with you. Someone saying my son's name. Someone remembering. Someone not being afraid of your tears. Someone not trying to rush you into being okay. That fills something inside you. And just thinking about that brings me to this lesson. It's called the bucket lesson, and it's an idea that my kids learned in catechism, and I love it because it's so simple, but it's so powerful. If you think about it, everyone's walking around with a bucket. It's an invisible bucket. And when someone is kind to us, it fills our bucket. And when someone checks in, it fills our bucket. When someone includes us in whatever event they're doing, that fills our bucket. When someone remembers what matters to us, it also fills our bucket. When someone says, I see you, it fills our bucket. And conversely, when someone ignores us, mocks us, is mean to us, excludes us, shames us, or just makes us feel small, it empties our bucket. But here's the beautiful part. When you fill someone else's bucket, your own bucket gets filled too. Kindness is not something we lose when we give it away. It moves through us. It changes the room. It changes the energy. It reminds people that they matter. And sometimes a very small act of kindness can interrupt a very dark thought. A text can fill a bucket. A compliment can fill a bucket. And a smile can fill a bucket. Saying, come sit with us to someone absolutely fills a bucket. And the other thing is that you can't fill a bucket by emptying someone else's bucket. I remember saying that someone can say their name after they're gone, and that fills my bucket. Or asking how your heart is today, actually waiting for that answer can fill a bucket. We don't always know whose bucket is empty, but I will tell you, by tipping someone's bucket doesn't fill your bucket. By being mean or doing things that are just self-serving never fills a bucket. And that's why kindness matters. That's why we can't assume that the funny person is fine, or the one that's so popular, or the MVP is the best and strong and doesn't need checking in, because they do. And that's why we need to be there and make sure that we check in on everyone, not just the quiet person who wants to be left alone, because we all need support. We all need connection. I want to say that a lot of people who've been struggling get really good at pretending that they're not. And so I have a challenge for all of you out there. Fill one bucket every day, just one. Send the text, make the call, invite the person, compliment the person on the street, tell that teenager that their complexion looks amazing. Check in on the friend who always seems so strong, and ask your child something deeper than, how was your day? Say the name of the person who died. Don't be afraid. Or just simply tell someone, I'm glad you're here. You matter to me. Don't wait until someone's broken. Don't wait until you know what to say perfectly. You don't have to be perfect to be present. You don't have to fix someone's whole life to remind them they're not alone. And to anyone listening right now who feels lonely right now, I want you to hear me. You're not invisible. You are not too much. You are not forgotten. And you are not a burden. You are not the worst thing your mind says about you. You matter. Your life matters. And your pain is temporarily. I need you to believe that right now. And I know that loneliness lies. It tells you nobody cares. It tells you everyone would be better off without you. It tells you there's no way through, but there is. Look how far you've come at this point in your life. There is help. There is connection. And there is still light within you, even if you can't feel it right now. Please stay. Tell someone. Reach out or text or call 988. If you're in the U.S., if you feel unsafe, there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in needing help. There's no shame in saying, I am not okay, because you're human. When I think about Scott and I think about his light, I think about his laugh and I think about his poems, I'm grateful that he could make people smile. But I also wish he could have seen himself the way we saw him. And because I can't go back, I go forward. I go forward by telling the truth. I go forward by saying the hard things out loud. I go forward by reminding one person at a time that their story is not over. So today, let's make this episode more than a conversation. Let's make it a mission. Fill one bucket. Notice one person. Say something nice, one kind thing. Ask one real question. Be the reason someone feels less alone today. Because maybe the answer to loneliness is not one grand rescue. Maybe it's 1,000 tiny little moments of noticing each other. And maybe if we all do that, loneliness will have less room to grow. This is S.O.S. Stories of Survivors. I'm Serina Dansker, Scotty's mom, reminding you that your story is not over, your light still matters. And even in your loneliest moments, you don't have to face pain alone. And this is S.O.S., and I do this because survival sparks the soul. Thank you for listening, and thank you for loving Scott through me, and thank you for helping me carry forward the spirit of Scotty.